Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We have a special guest on the line. We have Stacey Abrams. Good morning, Stacey.
Good morning.
How are you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling ready to go. We've got work to do.
And Stacey, I just want to thank you for all the hard work that you've already been putting up until today. And we are not quite there yet, but today's an important day in Georgia, and you've been working so hard. So let's talk about why today is so important.
Today is the day we not only set the future in motion, we have an opportunity to reset how we respond to COVID-19, whether there's actual support for our small businesses, whether there's healthcare access for especially the Black community that's been hit so hard, and whether or not we have a real commitment to justice. These are things that we've been waiting for, that we've been fighting for, and Georgia has the opportunity to help deliver this for all of America.
Stacey, have you been receiving a lot of threats from the good old boys in Georgia for shaking up the way you have done there?
We don't really talk about those a lot, but I will say there are a lot of people who are very angry about me. But my focus is not on their distaste. My focus is on the people who need to believe that their power is real. This is an election that has some very clear and immediate consequences, not only whether or not we get stimulus checks that can actually help us get through the winter, but whether we have a plan for investing in our communities, whether we have the ability to fight back against those who would strip us of our rights to vote because they're angry about how we voted. This election, and particularly having Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock on the ballot, is about saying this is who we are and who we intend to be, and replacing two people who have made it their mission to deny access, to deny support, and to deny their responsibilities to the people of Georgia.
I was seeing that a lot of older people are scared to get out and vote because of COVID. I see the younger people; they shouldn't have no problem because Georgia is open. But to the older people and people that might have complications, can you please tell them how important it is, and don't just think, "Hey, we got this. Don't worry about it," and how important getting out there and vote really is at this point?
Well, I'm going to reframe that just a little bit, because Georgia actually has one of the highest COVID infection rates in the nation compared to our population. And that's why it's been so important that people who voted in person early so they could socially distance, and why it was important for them to use vote by mail. But one of the important things about Georgia is that while unfortunately we do have this surge, if you go to vote, you can socially distance, you can wear your mask. But if we do not get Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock in office, we are going to be one of those states that will be continually harmed by COVID-19. We are a fourth of the size of California, and yet we have nearly half the number of deaths and a little less than half the number of infections. And so it's even more important because unlike California or another state, we don't have Medicaid expansion. So if you get sick here and you are in the 1.4 million without health insurance, you are pretty much on your own. And the only way this gets fixed is if we elect Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff today. Often there are conversations about what elections can or can't do. And I'm always saying, voting isn't magic, but right now voting is medicine. Voting is how we fix where we are today and how we get ready to start building towards what we need next.
Stacey, can I ask you a question? Yes, I was asking about Donald Trump and the misinformation that he's spreading and saying that these elections are rigged and that he actually won and that the Democrats are trying to steal the elections in Georgia. What is that going to do, you think, as far as even Republicans voting?
Well, his conspiracy theories have been widely, soundly, and repeatedly rejected and debunked. Brad Raffensperger, who is no friend to voters and certainly no friend to voting rights, at least is telling the truth about this. The election, we have proven again and again that the election was fair. And what we're afraid of is that for Republicans in particular, this belief in the conspiracy theories will somehow bleed over into the restriction on voting rights for those of us who, for the first time, truly had free and fair access to the polls. But we also don't know the effect it's going to have on their turnout. I want to win. I believe in our candidates, and I want us to have a victory. But I don't want victory at the expense of disenfranchising voters with misinformation. But I can't tell Republicans who to listen to. All I can do is do my work and my part to get the folks who understand the fights that we fought to mitigate voter suppression, to let them know now is the time to get out there and vote so we can have 2 U.S. senators who work with Vice President-elect Kamala Harris and with President-elect Joe Biden to actually secure democracy and make these changes permanent.
But Stacey, it got to make you feel good, though, because when you hear Trump pressuring state officials to overturn the election, that validates what you've been saying about voter suppression and what you dealt with when you ran for governor of GA. So it kind of, validates what Fair Fight's been fighting for.
It has been interesting to see how much time I spend in his head. But, yes, I will give Fair Fight Fair Fight and so many organizations on the ground that we were able to invest in. We've moved millions of dollars to these small organizations, these medium-sized organizations that have been toiling in the vineyards, have been working for communities, and they were able to really scale up and fight in this election because we did. We were part of a coalition that pushed back against vote by mail rules that were different depending on the county you lived in. We were able to block that exact match rule that made it so hard for Black and brown people to get on the rolls and stay on the rolls. We were able to support election workers. We actually helped invest in the general election more than $30 million in making sure there were drop boxes and other apparatuses that made it easier for folks to vote. So yes, I'm incredibly proud of Fair Fight, proud of our team, and proud of all of those groups that were out there, like the New Georgia Project and others, doing the work of getting voters registered, mobilized, and to the polls.
Since we're talking about Brad Raffensperger and the Georgia Secretary of State, is it a crime what Donald Trump was saying in that phone call about finding votes?
I'm not really going to focus on what he is saying or doing. This man is a failed president who's out of there in about 15 days. My focus is on making sure that the new president has the partnership he needs and has the support he needs to actually get things done. And let's be clear, if it's a 50-50 Senate, let's not assume that everything is going to happen immediately, because that still means they've got to fight for every vote. But at least we have a fighting chance, because Mitch McConnell, Kelly Loeffler, and David Perdue do not care about Georgia and do not care about our relief, don't care about our jobs, don't care about justice.
With that said, how disappointed would you be if even with Black people delivering the Oval Office and the Senate to Democrats, if this administration doesn't keep promises to Black people?
I believe that they want to get good done, and that's why I'm working so hard. And yes, there's always going to be disappointment, but what I want people to understand is the rules of the Senate remain. You still have to have 60 votes to get a lot of things done. But if we make it 50-50, that means that there are mechanisms we can use to get more done than normal. This is not going to be like the first 2 years of Obama in 2008, where he had 60 U.S. senators and was able to get health care passed. This is going to be a nail biter every time, because sending John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock means that Georgia has 2 strong people that we know of. But unfortunately, we can't speak for every other Democrat on every single issue. That said, I believe we all need to hold the Biden administration accountable, and we need to hold our senators across the country accountable for what they say they're going to do. And if it doesn't happen, we need to know why it didn't happen and when it's going to get done.
I was going to ask Stacey, I know we're talking about election, but I have a question. I was in Georgia this weekend, and I wanted to ask, what were your thoughts or opinions on how Georgia is handling the pandemic or the spike of crime, or even I seen a lot of homelessness in Georgia. There was a lot of homeless people, more than I ever seen before in my life being in Georgia. What are your thoughts on everything that's happening with Atlanta and Georgia now?
Well, writ large, we are handling the pandemic abysmally. We have a weak and ineffective governor who has allowed, we have 2 of our regions in our state, 2 healthcare regions, where they're over 100% over capacity for hospitalization, meaning there are beds in the hallway. As I said, California's population is 39 million. Georgia's is 11 million. And yet we've got 600,000 plus infections. We've had more than 10,000 deaths. And so, no, we are not handling this well. Plus, we have one of the weakest infrastructures. And so to your point about homelessness, Georgia already had a homelessness problem that got exacerbated by the fact that we have 400,000 Georgians who are out of a job, 3.9 million people who've had either lost their jobs or had their hours reduced. And we have 161,000 people who are on the verge of eviction. That is why this is so urgent. We know that crime spikes when there are economic challenges, and that's true across the board. I'm not going to say that all of that will get fixed immediately, but I will tell you right now Mitch McConnell has declared he does not intend to solve these problems. When they passed the last stimulus bill, they refused to include money for municipalities and for counties. That's how you get access to housing dollars. That's how you make certain that the homeless have shelter in the middle of the winter. Those are things they've refused to do. And if we do not have Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff, the dismal and I would say absurd and meanness of how they're dealing with COVID will continue.
All right.
All right. And for everybody who hasn't voted early and is going to the polls today, I saw there were issues with some absentee ballots. I saw Kamala Harris saying, do not put those in the mailbox, take it to a drop box in your county now. What advice and what will you tell people if you haven't voted early and if you plan to vote today, how should you be handling this?
Number one, go to peachvote.com to find your polling place. Number two, if you requested an absentee ballot and didn't receive it, it happened to Tyler Perry, then you can go to your assigned polling place in person, tell them you want to cancel your ballot and vote in person. You can find out your assigned polling place at peachvote.com. Number three, if you get in line, as long as you're in line by 7 p.m., no matter how long it takes, once you're in line, they have to let you stay. And if you have any questions, if there are any concerns, call 866-OUR-VOTE, 866-OUR-VOTE. This is a group of attorneys and volunteers, and their only mission today is to make sure your vote gets cast and your vote gets counted.
All right, Stacey, it's my final. I got one last question for you. After everything you've done, in the presidential election, flipping Georgia blue and having all these earlier voters show up for the Senate race, how do you like your chances to be Georgia's governor in 2022?
I'm sorry, there seems to be some noise on the line. I think the only thing we can talk about is making sure that today we close this day out strong by making certain that every person who wants to see progress, every person who believes that their lives should be valued, that if you want health, jobs, and justice, you're voting for Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. You're making a plan to vote all over Georgia, and we're going to show America that Georgia can get it done.
All right, you heard it here first. Stacey is running again in 2022. She'll be the next governor of Georgia. That's right. Thank you.
All right, Stacey, we appreciate you for checking in, and thank you so much. Georgia, get out there and vote.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right, it's the Breakfast Club. Good morning. Rumors on the way.